In today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, we are joined by Ant Wright, college basketball, NBA draft content creator. You guys all probably know who Ant Wright is. We had him on the podcast last summer to talk about the NBA draft, and we'll be doing the same thing today. We'll be talking about how special Victor Wembanyama is, Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson, and also the Thompson Twins and the struggle of trying to scout them since they play in the OTE. We'll talk about all of that and a little more in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Johnson with 1 second to go.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And while we do have a great guest on tonight in Ant Wright to talk about the NBA draft and all the topics I already laid out, I'm extremely excited to talk about it. I know you guys are going to enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun recording with Ant. I need to say a quick word on a disheartening article that broke this afternoon, May 4th. The Detroit Free Press released an article breaking Dejanay Raska's silence for the first time, revealing why assistant general manager Rob Murphy initially was on leave 6 to 7 months ago and has been fired by the organization. The actions outlined within the article are deplorable and disgraceful. My heart goes out to Dejanay. She has been incredibly courageous, and I hope she inspires others to not let their voice be silenced. Her strength today will hopefully provide others the strength they need to rise up against sexual harassment. The link to said article I will put in the bio below for all of you guys to check out yourselves, see all the details in there. Again, like I said, I'll put the link to it down below. For those of you guys listening on the podcast platforms, you guys will find it over on the Detroit Free Press website, so definitely go check it out over there. That's all I've got. I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Ant Wright. We had a lot of fun recording this one. Talking about Wemby, talking about Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson, the Thompson Twins, some other stuff too. Hope you guys enjoy it. It was a lot of fun recording it. Again, the link to the article will be down below. But enjoy the interview, and I'll see you guys on the other side, and have fun, everybody. So we are joined by Ant Wright, content creator, and he has a website he's putting up soon. His own company, his own everything. You know, you guys know who Ant is. Big Ten, NBA draft, college basketball content creator. We had him on the podcast last summer to talk about some of the NBA draft. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we will be talking about how special Wemby is. In the first segment, we'll then eventually get to Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson. And then we'll touch on the Thompson Twins and the impact of playing in the OTE league. But obviously, first we'll start off with Victor Wembanyama, who is the first overall pick. No matter what team gets the first overall pick, he is going to be the first overall pick. You guys have heard me on the podcast reference him as literally God on a basketball court, that he is going to be the greatest player of all time. Now, obviously, I'm joking a little bit with that, but honestly, I'm not joking somewhat. But that's how crazy of a prospect he is. He is a generational prospect, and we'll dive further into him in a future podcast, obviously, especially if the Pistons were to get number 1 overall pick. But this is just a brief touch on him. So, Ant, I just want to know, how special is Victor Wembanyama for real?
He's special from the point of like you've never seen a guy like this before. When you're talking, 7'5", 8-foot wingspan, and then being able to have a bag of offensive skills, it looks silly. Him being on the perimeter and doing what he does, whether he wants to pull up for a three or a jumper or go all the way to the basket, go in the mid post and do what he does. Not a lot of people are talking about his defense. Like, that dude's wingspan is crazy. His mobility is crazy. Imagine like Rudy Gobert, except taller, longer, more mobile, versatilely on the defensive end, able to guard. I think he can guard a lot of the 1s and 2s in the league because of how big he is. He'll be able to give 3 or 4 more feet of space and still be able to contest any shot. That's why it's so dangerous. And and he could take any angle on the rim. So even if you blow past him, he's still going to pin it against the glass. His biggest thing is going to be strength and durability, in my opinion. Everything else is there. The measurables are there. The skill set is there. The ceiling, I don't even know if it exists. But it's going to come down to how durable he is, and it's going to come down to, physically, is he going to be able to have a really big impact on the league?
So I'll touch a little bit with the durability a little bit later before we move on to Brandon Miller versus Scoot. But like you were mentioning, this dude's ceiling is there even a ceiling for Victor Wembanyama? Like, this dude is crazy. So next question I have, and then I'll ask you a little bit about durability, or your projections on his injury concerns, etc. The next question I have is, how franchise altering do you think he's going to be for like franchises? Like, we'll talk about Scoot Henderson later, who I think is the second guy in this draft. But we'll talk about Scoot later. I've seen some people call him a borderline generational type of prospect. I've seen people be really high on Scoot. We've heard people be really high on Cade entering the draft. We heard people be high on, other guys entering the draft. But it seems like Victor is on a different level. Just how much do you think he can alter a franchise as soon as he's drafted?
From a monetary standpoint, right away, like, you're talking about, if you own a team and that dude lands on your like lotto ball in, like, what is that? Like, that's this month, right? A couple weeks, right?
Yes,
A
sir.
couple weeks away. I mean, your franchise is automatically going to go up by minimum high mid 9 figures right away. So it's going to impact your franchise like that. The fact that he is so versatile, he'll be able to play with pretty much anyone, because he's someone who you could, like, move around. Like, like Giannis, he's not like, you don't really have to watch who you pair him with, because he's just Giannis. I'm not calling him Giannis yet from, like, a dominant standpoint, but just from the skill set and his size, he should be able to kind of gel and kind of do whatever he does with any group of people. And that's going to be the biggest thing about him, is that he's going to be able to juice your franchise right away. You're probably going to sell out almost every seat from, like, as soon as it launches. And you're going to be a team where people are going to pay attention to all the time. And I'm pretty sure ESPN and TNT and all that are going to want to get as many of those games as possible as well. So it's just going to help every level, every single level. It's just going to be high impact on the court, off the court, franchise, front office, back office. Any bar within 2 miles of the arena, I mean, it's going to be a W for everybody, bro. Everybody.
So, last question about Victor, and then we'll move on to the next segment. You mentioned his durability. Obviously, dude's that tall. He's a freak, man. He's a freak, and we've seen people that tall, or not that tall, but tall dudes deal with injuries. How much of an injury concern do you believe, or how much of a concern do you have about him being able to stay healthy, being injured? Does he have a past of being injured a lot? Like, how concerned are you about this?
He's had injuries in the last couple years. You've seen guys like Yao Ming come in, play a bunch of games right away, and you see they get hurt, and all of a sudden you see a career get cut short. And this is going to be very unpopular, I'm sure, but I think that when he comes in the league, his first year, he should not play more than 65 games. I think that first year should really be about evaluation, monitoring every single thing that he does, every single step he takes on that basketball court. It's not about his first year. It's not about him coming in and being the dude that first year. You need to make sure that he lasts as long as possible. And in order to do that, you need to know how his body's going to react to a back-to-back. How is his body going to react to going on the road for 5-6 games? How is his body going to react when he plays certain body types, back to back to back over a 6 to 7 day window, and you got to have really in-depth doctors and physicians to be on everything just to know how his body is impacted and really be able to see that, study that, and then be able to, in year 2, understand, hey, this is what we need to do. This is the plan of attack. I think you have to get really in depth. There are some guys out there you could just, hey, go roll the ball and go play. This is not one of those situations. I do think it also helps that he is on the lighter side. He's not like a Yao where he's 300 plus. He's not doing that. He is on the lighter side, so I think that's going to be much better for ligaments and all that. But he is still 7'5". He has had injuries in the past. So I just think durability-wise, him being able to get through his first year unscathed while the team and the team doctors and physicians and the experts really learn about his body and how it reacts after games, after practices, after workouts, stress tests, just to make sure in year 2, if he's going to play 75 to 82 games, how to go about it the right way.
All right. Well, that's Ant's thoughts on Victor Wembanyama. I told you guys already, if the Pistons were to get Victor Wembanyama, I don't know, I can't even imagine what the hell would happen, dude. It would be oh my God, I'm praying
200,000 subs, bro. It's gonna be nuts for you.
It would. I can't lie. It would help me out. It would help me out a little
bit. Victor Wembanyama seen at Briarwood Mall in Ann Arbor.
It would be everything. It'd be everything, man. But we'll leave that off right there. When we come back, we're going to talk about the famous debate that's going on. At least, I'm not going to lie. I don't know if this debate is happening anywhere else but for the Pistons, to be honest. But we'll talk about the debate of Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson when we come back. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit, or you'll get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply at ebaymotors.com. So I want to thank you guys again. Ant, man, stop laughing, dude. Come on. What are you laughing about, man? What's so funny over there? You laughing at my ad reads or something, man? It's just
no, man, Walker's tripping.
Oh, you're okay. I can accept that. Your kid's making you laugh. That's fair. I thought this man. I'm over here doing this ad read. I look over at Ant. He's chuckling. I'm like, bro, come on, man. I'm doing the business. This is part of it. But anyways, all right. Brandon Miller versus Scoot Henderson. So, Ant, just to give you a little bit of background real quick. So, my last episode, so this is my first prospect that I dove into this offseason was Amen Thompson. And I had a lot of fun watching Amen Thompson and scouting him. And I did an episode, like I said, recently. It was my last episode detailing everything I found with him. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But the second prospect I've been getting into for the last 2 days is Brandon Miller. And I have some thoughts so far. I'm not done with everything I want to look at. I've looked at 2 to 3 of his best games. I've looked at 2 to 3 of his worst games, and now I'm trying to watch some all right games and some tourney games. I know he struggled in a tourney, so I didn't look at those ones yet. But before I'll let you go first, but my initial question for you is this: heading into this season, it felt like it was a Wemby, Scoot, and then everyone else. Heading into this season, it was Wemby. Actually, not even Wemby and Scoot. It probably was Wemby, Scoot, and then everybody else. It was a gap between Wemby, Scoot, and then whatever. But after this NBA season, after some of the stuff that's happened for the college season and the G League Ignite, all that stuff, there's a lot of Pistons fans who believe that Miller over Scoot. And there has been, I guess, some national people I've seen push the narrative that Miller may be better than Scoot, but I haven't seen as many as that. My question to you is this. Do you believe Brandon Miller versus Scoot is actually a debate prospect-wise? Remove, this is a Pistons podcast. I'm having you talk about the Pistons. But, remove the Pistons out of it, just as pure prospects. Do you think that Brandon Miller is on Scoot's level, and do you actually think Brandon Miller is a better prospect than Scoot?
No, I don't. No. And I don't think it's close. I think Scoot goes number one in 70% of the drafts over the last several years. I think he's a really good player, and that's someone too who has been he's been a pro for 2 years, right? He's been playing against grown men for 2 years. He's been playing against former NBA guys, guys who are trying to get back to the league. All those guys know who he is. So he had a target on his back, and he was still able to do his thing. His thing, he's got to be able to shoot the three a bit better. But, man, his midi is so nice. It's so good. When he gets to, 14 to, 19, it's over. And he's very explosive. I think he's next up from the guard spot. It's one of those positions where I think that is such a high value when it comes to the NBA right now in terms of meta. I would say the scoring guard, along with the I call it the get the F out the way forward, which is your Giannis's, your Kawhis. I'm gonna put Luka in that same mold too. Those bigger players who can go out there with anybody, just give them the ball and just move out the way. I think Scoot is in that guard. Just high value. I like Brandon Miller too. I think he is someone who he's a more perimeter version of a Jabari Smith, but he's able to handle the ball a bit more. He's not as explosive, needs help with the separating and creating and all that. His shot should translate, but he is a bit older. I believe he's going to be 21 by time rookie year starts. Scoot just turned 19, so that's a big difference. That's about a year and a half. And I think that the struggles that I saw with Brandon Miller, I think his floor is also a bit lower. While I also believe that Scoot not only has a higher floor, he has a higher ceiling, because I'm not sure where you go if you are Brandon Miller, because he's not a Jason Tatum type. He's not going to be that type of guy. Could he be like a Mikal Bridges? Possibly, given the right situation. But when you're looking at, would you rather Mikal Bridges or potentially top 5 guard in the league, you would go top 5 guard in the league, because that's someone who could take over a franchise and be special over the course of several years. So
I'm very happy you said that, because I also don't think it's much of a debate with Scoot and Brandon Miller. I have not dove in to Scoot Henderson stuff yet, but I personally don't think it's close with them as prospects. I have, like I mentioned, I have been looking into Brandon Miller the last few days and trying to get my notes all together and make sure I have a complete idea of Brandon Miller before I record a full episode on him. But since you pretty much answered the question about Brandon Miller versus Scoot, actually, real quick, before I say my thoughts on Brandon Miller, I should ask you this too. For the Pistons, does that change your mind? Just real quickly, Brandon Miller versus Scoot, if you're looking from the Pistons perspective, does it change your mind at all? Do you still say, nah, it doesn't matter, you get Scoot anyways?
I would hate to be in the Pistons situation, honestly, because it's tough, because you already got 2 guards right there who you believe in. Jaden Ivey, how he's improved his first year. I think in year 2, he could be special. Cade, he needs to play a full season. Come on, bro. Come on, man. You got to play a full season. I know we can't control that, but the Pistons need him. Detroit, the city, needs him to play a full year. This season he looked real good. He looked real good before he went down. And you hate to see that momentum just end and stop abruptly. That's when you get guys like him to get to that next level in year 3, right? But he's going to be picking up where he left off, hopefully, right? Not at that next point. So that part sucks. I still think at this point you do draft on talent. You draft talent. You don't draft positionally in the draft, in my opinion, because you can always trade and sign guys positionally, right? But when it comes to the draft itself, this may be your only shot at these guys, and you got to get the best player available, and you got to just Walker, stop. You have to just figure it out. You got to get the top talent and figure it out later, especially if you're going to be picking in that top 3.
So I know we're on a time crunch, so I'm not going to go too far into my thoughts on Miller because I really do want to talk with you about the Thompson Twins and OTE. So just my quick thoughts on Miller so far. Like I said, it's only been 2 days I've been looking at. I plan on going. We'll probably get an episode, everybody, probably like Wednesday next week on Brandon Miller. But my first immediate thoughts that I've seen from Brandon Miller. One, I'd like him a lot more at 5 than I would at the top of the draft. I see a role for him, obviously. I think the shooting, like you said, should translate. But I also see some of the separation concerns. I see some of the creation concerns. He has a fine handle, but I don't know if it's a good enough handle for like when it comes to creating separation for himself. Like I can see him definitely being able to attack closeouts, definitely being able to handle someone in transition and stuff. He should be able to do that. But when it comes to creating for himself, I don't know if he'd be able to do that. His explosion around the rim, he struggles to finish, it feels like, from what I've watched so far, because he can't really get off the ground, especially off 2 feet when he's in traffic or he's being contacted. That's something I feel like I've seen he struggled with. So I just have concerns about his overall ceiling with the Pistons. I feel like if you were to have number 2, you can't draft a guy like that. And honestly, I think this is a good way to segue into the next segment, is because, again, I'm going to watch more of Brandon Miller. Maybe some things, maybe I've missed some games, and maybe some things I'm going to see will change some of my mind. But as of right now, moving into the next segment, Ant, I have Amen Thompson above Brandon Miller for me on my draft board right now. Now, like I said, I haven't dove into all the prospects. I don't have my mock draft on my big board yet. But between these two guys, I have Amen above Brandon Miller. And I'll tell you a little bit why when we come back. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our lovely sponsors. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Or hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. That's another great way to support the podcast. And trolls, man, messes around too much, man. All right, so anyways, we were talking about Brandon Miller in the last segment, and I said, okay, as of right now, through 2 days of me watching Brandon Miller, I still have Amen Thompson above Brandon Miller. And I believe last week or so, Ant was in a Twitter space with me, and he was discussing, I think it got started because of Kevin Ollie, which let's not get into that. But you kind of shared your thoughts on the OTE and some of the Thompson Twins. You didn't share all of your thoughts, but you kind of touched on it a little bit. So I'm interested to get your perspective on it. But I watched Amen Thompson for I went through about 6 days of watching as much film as I could with him. I watched some of his overseas film at the beginning of the year with the OTE season. I watched the beginning of OTE season. I watched some of the playoff games with the OTE season. By the way, the OTE league overall, I'm sure you're going to talk about this. It's a joke. The overall, it's a troll. I can't believe Agent Zero is a commentator. I could not believe that. What's going on? But I try to get as much film on Amen as possible, and I really like Amen Thompson. I really do. So everyone who's listening to the podcast has already heard my thoughts on them. Or on Amen, at least. I haven't gotten to Ausar yet. So I'd like to just get your thoughts, Ant, real quickly on Amen Thompson if you want to go in further with the Thompson Twins, I know a lot of people are also high on Ausar, and from the little bit when I was watching Amen and just watching Ausar as like part of the team, he is. I feel like he did pop up a little bit for me too. So I'm interested to see how he looks when I watch him specifically. But if you want to touch the Thompson Twins in general, you can do that, and then also just. Actually, no, just do that quick. I feel like once we get to the OTE in general, you're gonna rant for a minute. So just talk about the Thompson Twins real quick.
Their talent is undeniable. They're arguably, when they enter the league, they're arguably going to be top 5 athletes right away. Explosive. They're quick. I think they do a lot of things that not a lot of people do, because just how fast they are. And I think they can be very versatile on the defensive end, very good in the transition. My thing is going to be in winning time in half court. What does that look like? Could be a little bit scary because they are a little bit raw, but they're really fun, and that they can get to the rack better than one dribble and they're chest at the rim. It's insane. The jump shot is something to definitely improve on. They need a jumper badly, a dependable jumper badly. I think that's what's really given me a lot of pause. But overall, like, those dudes, they're so fast, they're so quick, and like you said, and they're like 6'7". They're 6'7", long wingspans. Their verts are like high 40s. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. They move around like they're like 6'1", but they're just huge. And I hate OTE. Bro. I hate it so much. And the fact that they got through OTE and they're still going to be lottery pick despite going OTEs are going to be great. I don't like. Yeah, like, it is a complete joke of a league. It's not about their development. It's about getting clicks on, even though this is going to be on YouTube, being clicks on YouTube. But like, that's our purpose, right? That's our purpose, drive traffic. Their purpose is to go out there, hoop, and get better, but they're not getting better. What helped me a little bit, they played in the TBT last year. In the basketball tournament, they got picked up, and they were playing very good basketball on a high level against some dudes who needed to go out there and win some money. They didn't need to go out there and play in that. I think they did that to prove to people, like, hey, look, we don't just kill on the OTE. Like, we can kill these dudes who are former NBA players, guys who are still trying to become a pro at some level. Them being able to go out there and compete there, showing how their athleticism can really overwhelm other pros, right? And I think that was the really cool thing about them. But they're a bit of an anomaly still for me. I'm sorry, they're a bit of an anomaly, and a lot of it is because I just don't respect a lot of their competition. I don't respect the program that they're in. I don't respect Overtime Elite at all. Which stinks, because I think it has a really good premise. But the reasons, but their, I don't know, like, their mission doesn't really gel with some of these kids who are going there to get paid up front, but then also prepare themselves for the next level. It's just not doing it for me. But yeah, that's my biggest pause with that, is because you could see it, but their jump shot is still to be desired. But they do a lot of the little things. And when everybody's a bucket in the league, you need to find some guys like this whose intangibles kind of like take their game up several notches, and that's what both Amen and Ausar have going for them.
So I just want to say this. I completely agree with you about the OT. I mentioned this in my Amen Thompson breakdown. It was awful. I did not enjoy what, like, if I was not scouting like the Thompson Twins, I would not recommend a damn person to watch that. It's bad. It's like it's disgusting. It's terrible. However, this was part. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it real quick. I know we only got a few more minutes, so I'd just like to hear your thoughts with this real quick. I love how you mentioned the TBT, but also they played against Mega, I believe it was. And they also played against the Adelaide 36ers, who was the team that beat the Suns in the preseason, I believe either last year or this past preseason. And that's kind of like EuroLeague competition that you'd see. I believe actually Jokic played on the Mega team, when he was whatever. Anyways, when they played against them, I liked what I saw from Amen still, even with that. So like you mentioned, like even when they've went and played, better competition, he still popped off the film for me with what he can do. So that's what makes me, and the tools. The tools is something that translates, no matter the competition, like you mentioned, the athleticism, they're going to be like a 99th percentile athlete no matter where they step on the court. Their measurables, and then there's some things I personally just believe translate no matter where, like being able to read a defense and make reads, that's something I feel like translates, and I feel like Amen does that pretty well. But overall, my question is, how difficult for you does it, them playing for the OT, how difficult does it make your job of trying to make a big board with them on it, or trying to put them against guys like Brandon Miller that you see play against college competition? How tough is that on someone like you who's trying to put these guys, figure out where these guys rank, and you got these dudes who are, like you said, incredibly interesting and legit dudes, but they're going against they're playing in the OTE. I guess that's how does that hurt you or affect it?
It's almost impossible, but you gotta trust your eyes and trust what you're seeing, and then you gotta trust who the person is. And a lot of us don't know who these kids are, and a lot of that is honestly, what's going on between the ears is 70% is this kid going to make it or not? Are they going to be willing to be a professional? Are they going to be willing to not be out all night? Are they going to be willing to not go on this trip or that trip? Are they going to be in the gym? Are they going to be hungry? Right? That, quote unquote, that Jimmy Butler aura, right? Where all he wants to do is kill, where are you from a I want to be the best in the league standpoint, or are you just happy to be there? Do you love the game? I think Patrick Beverly had, a great little segment the other day saying how a lot of these dudes don't love the game, but they're getting better. They're in the lab because they're good and this is what they do as their job. But do you really love the game? And I think these guys who could be out the league as soon as they're in the league, if you don't love the game, you're going to be out quicker than you're going to stay. So it's hard. It's hard. It's almost impossible, but you have to trust your eyes.
All right, well, we got 4 minutes left with Ant, so I'm going to ask him quick hitting questions right here, and then I'll let you go. First question, where do you have right now Brandon Miller on your board? Pistons fans love him. And I see why. He seems like from what I've watched, he would be the most seamless fit. It just fit wise, he seems like he would fit really well. But on your board right now, where would you have Brandon Miller?
I don't have a board.
Okay, here's a better question. Would you take? Okay, so you're taking Wemby, Scoot. Would you take any of Whitmore, Thompson Twins? What's his name? Taylor Hendrickson. Would you take, how many of those guys do you take over Brandon Miller?
Not a lot, because some guys you just can't afford to let go past. I would say Miller, he should go top 4, point blank period. And the argument is for, do you go Amen at 3 or do you go with him at 4, and how you're feeling and who's at that point. You're looking at, because they're very similar, then you can move to, if you're saying, hey, these guys are the same on the talent level and all that, then you can move to positional. hey, do we see him playing well with this player or this player? And it could be just the difference of who gets that pick of where they go there, honestly.
All right, last question. Who in this draft outside of Wembanyama, and I guess Scoot, since you have him, like, outside of those two guys, who do you think would be best for the Pistons? Come on, man. You got 2 minutes, man. I'm putting you on. Just give me a quick answer. I won't hold you to it. I won't hold you to it.
Can I go second round?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Say a second round guy.
Kobe Brown. I like Kobe Brown. 6'8". He was like a 55, 45, like 80 or 90 from the free throw line. 6'8", like 240. I think he's one of those guys. He is older. So his ceiling is a little bit, lower. But you put him in an NBA on an NBA team, and you make sure that he's eating right, he's doing all these things. I think that's someone who could really help. Chris Murray may drop. Who knows? He's another dude who I feel is a good player, a great asset. Now if oh my goodness. Now if we're talking about I don't know. 1 second.
Okay, but Jonathan's here.
All right.
Time's ticking, Ant. Time's ticking,
I
Ant.
know. 1 second. I'm probably gonna go with I like Hendricks. I like Hendricks for y'all. Not gonna lie. I like Hendricks. So if y'all drop to like 6 or 7, I would go with Hendricks.
Well, the farthest the Pistons can fall is 5, but I hear you. I hear you with that.
That's the furthest?
Yes.
Oh man. Okay.
No,
Jeez.
it's fine. We'll go with Hendricks. I know you have a phone call you have to get to.
I mean, I also like Anthony Black as like a dark horse. I know he's a guard, but I think he's someone who can come in and like change the pace along with 2 scoring guards. Walker's talking so well.
All right, well, we'll take those. I won't hold you to it. Your opinion can change. We'll get your opinion closer once they get the lottery sorted out. But we got to go now. Thank you, Ant, for joining us, man. Appreciate you coming on and talking with us. You guys can follow him over on Twitter at It's Ant Wright. Go follow him over there. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Enjoy the playoffs, and peace out.